It's actually measuring length. And this is all kind of stuff that you know, and you'll hear me say this kind of a bazillion times here. At the risk of sounding un-American, sometimes we as Americans are not very smart. And one of those times would come here. All of the industrialized, or all of the more sophisticated countries in the world use a much easier system for measuring than we do, and I don't know why we as a country don't switch, mostly because we're stubborn. And sometimes we get this little thing that thinks that this is the way we've been doing it, you know, it's really the best way, and that certainly is not true. We use for measuring what we call our standard system, which has no really real reason for it, or the book calls it the U.S. customary. Okay, no real good reason for doing this, and it's really awkward and hard to work with, but you already know most of this stuff here. We have 12 inches, which equal a foot. 3 feet equal 1 yard. What else do you suppose I'm going to tell you?
18 ounces equals.
No, we're doing measurements of length. We're not doing measurements of capacity or any of that. No, we're still in, what else we know? There are 5,280, there's a great number, feet in what we call 1 mile. No, we're not, that's not our system. You might as well also write this, if you do the math there, 1,760 yards equal 1 mile. And even from the time, you know, that I was your age, there was talk, we talked about it more then than we do now. This has been 40 years ago. You know, there was talk that we would stop using this system simply because, you know, if it said to convert, you know, 6 miles to feet, okay, you've got to take 5,280 and multiply that by 6, and that just is not easy numbers to work with. You know, 31,680.
Wow.
You know, feet in a mile. Just not what you really want to work with, but again, we're stubborn Americans, so that's what we're going to do. As opposed to every other country in the world which uses the metric system. Why is the metric system so much better?
Easy.
Why is it so much easier to use? Because the metric system is based on tens. Okay. Well, to multiply by 10 is really easy, and to divide by 10 is really easy. To divide by 5,280 is not something I'm not even sure some of you we can't even do yet. I don't think we've done it, is it?
Maybe. Yeah.
You know, if I said there was 20,465 feet and I asked you how many miles that is, how many of you feel comfortable dividing
50,000.
20,000 by that? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Take a
never
little
mind.
race here. Anyways, in the metric system, here's basically the ones you need to know. I suppose we could start with, well, let's just do it. There are 10 millimeters, which equal 1 centimeter. There are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. There are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. There are, I guess we should probably jot down, let's do 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. And really, let me show you where that comes from. And I think we might have drawn this up before. Okay. If you have 1 meter, which this is, that's the basic unit of measurement. Okay. There are metric system measurements that we don't use very often, but they're still there. For example, we took a meter, I thought it was you guys. If you take a meter and you cut it into 10,
Oh, yeah.
if you cut it into 10 equal pieces there,
Yeah.
okay, those, each piece there, we don't use this, but that is the decimeter. We don't use that because we don't come up with a lot of things that we measure in that distance there. Okay, but if you take a decimeter, and I think I blew this up and we cut that, if you cut a decimeter into 10 equal pieces, that's where we got the centimeter. And then if you took a centimeter and cut it into 10 equal pieces, that's where we got the millimeter. Okay, but going back to what we talked about here, you know, if you're changing, if you have 5 centimeters and you're changing that into millimeters, it's just so much easier to be able to multiply 5 times 10 and get 50 than it is to, say, change, you know, 6 feet into inches where you have to take 12 times 6, which isn't as easy as math. Because we talked about this before, when you multiply by tens, hundreds, and thousands, that is all mental math. Why? Why is it all mental math? Because you don't really have to do any multiplication, you just have to move decimals around. We talked about that, is that you guys, or is that somebody else?
Somebody else.
Somebody else. Well, we'll get to that.
You can do it next time.
We'll get to that here. Let's look at an example or two. 50 millimeters is how many centimeters? 50 millimeters equals how many centimeters? If there are 10 millimeters equal 1 centimeter, if you have 50 of those millimeters, all you have to do is, Noah, and what is 50 divided by 10? 5. Okay. That's all there is to it. But if you have 18 yards equals how many feet, knowing that there are 3 feet for every yard, what are you going to have to do, Alex?
Multiply it 2 times.
Right, and that's not quite as easy to do as 50 divided by whatever. 18 times 3 is 54 feet. And again, the only reason we don't switch, you know, every car part out there is measured in millimeters, everything's put together with millimeters. Just about everything, we don't do too much in standard form anywhere, other than when we drive, everything's listed in miles. Your speedometer is miles per hour, even though I think there's usually a second one there that says kilometers per hour. Does it say that in there?
Yeah.
Which can be kind of deceiving because about 55 miles an hour is how many kilometers per hour? Oh no, many more. It's like 80 or 90 or something like that. You know, you can be going 100 kilometers per hour and it's not quite as fast as any of that stuff there. All right, it's enough of me ripping on the good old United States